In this video, we're going to talk about the chapter 17, that is the special senses. So let's start. The purpose of this chapter is that you explore the structural and functional components of different cells. So here I just show you that we generally talk about 5 senses, and we're going to study how you have, for example, light, and light can turn into chemical impulses that go to your brain and they can be interpreted. Same thing with touch, gustation, olfaction, and hearing. And here there is just a joke about that I have a sixth sense, but instead it said I have a fifth sense. And why I show you that? Because the first thing that I want that you remember is that when we talk about sixth sense in the past, you refer like you have a paranormal sense. However, now this has been updated, yeah. So now we generally talk about 8 senses, and in addition to these 5 senses that you can see here, yeah, or these 5 senses that you see here, you will add at least 3 more, yeah, and they will have different names or different classification. But the idea is that there is more senses that are considered right now. One of them that is very interesting is, for example, proprioceptive, or the proprioception, that is the sense that led us to perceive the location and movement of different parts of our body. So for example, for gymnasts is very important. So when they are in the air and they are flipping, this allows them to know when to flip and when to stop. And if you remember Simone Biles, that she had to stop competing in one of the Olympics because she started losing the stress, started creating problems in this sense. And there's a lot of work to do that in those type of sense. I just wanted to tell you this just as a basic information, but we are going to mainly talk about the common 5 senses. And later, maybe if you're interested, you can check more about the other ones. So the first sense that we're going to talk is the olfaction, or sense of smell. Here you can see all these particles that when you breathe, you are going to perceive the different smell of those particles. And how you do that? Because in the nasal cavity, in the superior part, you will have here between 10 to 100 millions, yeah, so 10 or 100 millions of receptors that are involved in turning that uh, chemical smell into a chemical signal that later it will be processed in the brain in a specific region of the brain. So remember that the smell is a chemical sense, and that humans in the nose have between 10 million to 100 million of receptor for a smell, and the location of the smell will be in the olfactory epithelium that is located in the superior part of the nasal cavity. So, from a general perspective, the olfaction, the sense of smell, is located in the nasal cavity. So in your textbook, they show you that here in the nose, in the nasal cavity, you will have an epithelium, and we're going to talk about in a lot of detail about this olfactory epithelium. In this slide, I just wanted to show you where it's located in the skull. So here I have, just for simplicity, show you additional diagrams. And here is the key bone that you need to remember from the lab, this ethmoidal labyrinth. Yeah, so this yellow section here, there you will have subdivisions of that bone that are very important, and the epithelium will be located there. So one of them will be the superior concha. The superior concha is a small curved plate of a bone that is located here in the labyrinth of the ethmoid bone. And in addition to that, you have this cribriform plate that it will be located here. So just to remind you, we were talking about this very important epithelium, the olfactory epithelium, that we will talk in the following slides, and we will go and dissect each one of the components. But I wanted to tell you that that epithelium is located, it covers the inferior surface of the cribriform plate, and it extends to the superior nasal concha. And again, those two bones, the cribriform plate and nasal concha, are located in these very large ethmoidal labyrinths. Yeah, particularly the superior nasal concha is a small and curved plate bone that is located in this yellow one that I show you here. Okay, now that you know where the olfactory epithelium is located in the skull, in the nasal cavity, and between which bones, now we're going to move into the epithelium. Now we're going to talk about the olfactory epithelium. And in the following slides, we're going to start talking about each one of the components. Right now, I'm just going to focus on three main components that are these three type of cells that are the olfactory receptor cells, the supporting cells, and the basal cells. So the first one, the olfactory receptor cells, let me make an arrow in the other direction, are these ones that you can see here in purple. Yeah, or you can see them, it's also one of this one in green, or this one here in blue. Yeah, all of them, if you see, they have connections to the olfactory tract. Yeah, all of them are connecting there. While the other two, and we will talk about that more in the following slides, the supporting cell and the basal cells, they don't have these type of connections. So the supporting cells are this one that are located, that have cilia, that you can see them in pink, and the basal cells are only located in this region. Okay, so the following slides we will talk about each one of these components, and we will try to understand each one of these names in a simpler way. But I hope that it was clear that the olfactory epithelium has three main type of cells: olfactory receptor cells, supporting cell, and basal cells. So now let's talk about the other two type of cells. So here, let's start with this number two. That is, are the supporting epithelial cells. I'm going to highlight these ones. Here, if you see, they are very long. Yeah, so they are very long. So they are a columnar epithelium. And they are located close to this mucus layer. So they are located in a mucous membrane lining the nose. And it has three main functions. They are used as a physical support, as a nourishment, as an electrical insulation for the receptors. So if you see here, all these receptors, they need help, and though this is why the supporting epithelial cells there are helping. Now, we're going to move into the other type of cell, that is this basal epithelial cell. That is the number three. And the basal epithelial cells, all these blue tiny cells, they are also called basal stem cell. And with that, you already know the function. They are located there in case that the olfactory receptor need to be replaced. So they go through mitosis and replace those olfactory receptors. So they are stem cells for the sense of smell. Okay, so let's finish the recap all the thing that I told you. So I start telling you that the second group of cells of this olfactory receptor, they were the supporting cells, and they are columnar epithelial. They are very long. I told you that they were located in the mucous membrane lining the nose, and I told you that there were three main functions. Yeah, there are physical support, nourishment, and electrical insulation for the olfactory receptors. They're always helping those. This is why they are called supporting cells. Yeah, because they are supporting the olfactory receptor cells. Now, the third type of cells here, right? So they are basal epithelial cells or basal stem cells. And the main function is to undergo mitosis, and they to replace the olfactory receptors in case they are needed or when they are needed. So we just finished talking about this olfactory epithelium. We talked about these three type of cells. Some of them were stem cell, other ones were sensory neurons, and other ones were helping the sensory neurons to achieve to perform their function. The only thing that we miss is this olfactory gland that you can see it here. That you can see it that is secreting, yeah, so here you see the duct that is secreting this mucus. And this mucus is very important because it's secreting, sorry, is lubricating the epithelium, and it allowed to trap the odors, so they are captured and send, and the receptors are able to send the signals to the olfactory tract. Okay, so they facilitate the transportation of odorants to the olfactory receptors. So remember, olfactory glands, or also called Bowman glands, are very important because they produce what? A mucus. And this mucus is used to dissolve other molecules. Yeah, so it helps to dissolve it, and in that way, it's easier to capture, and the receptors are able to transport that to receive the signal. And that is very important to the transduction of the signal. And if you go and study this in more detail, you will find that that there are several olfactory binding proteins that are produced in this mucus of the olfactory glands, and those one will facilitate the transportation of deodorants to the olfactory receptor, as I said in a second. Okay, so with this, we finished all the different structures that are located in the olfactory epithelium. Now we're going to continue uh, talking about the other names that you can find there in this diagram. Okay, so now let's try to use all the information that we learned to try to understand how from an odorant molecule there is a mechanism that allow to send signals that the brain will interpret as a smell. So first thing that happens is that you have these odorant molecules, but you need to attach them to the neuron. So how do you do that? There is this mucus layer, there is a lubricant that is produced by this olfactory gland, and if you see here, this mucus is going to allow the different receptors located in the dendrites of the neurons are going to bind those odorants. There will be binding proteins, and this will send signals to these different sensory neurons. Yeah, and all these sensory neurons will be part of the olfactory nerve 1, and they will go here. Do you see? Go through the this cribriform plate, yeah, located in the ethmoid bone, ethmoid bone that we talked in the beginning, and they will go through synapses. Here you see the synapses here, and that synapses will be located in the olfactory bulb, and then they will send a signal through this olfactory gland that it will be sent to the brain, that in there it will be interpreted as a smell. Okay, so now let's recap all this information. I talk a lot about multiple things, so now let's recap. So things that you need to remember: olfactory tracts. Another thing that you have to remember: this neural structure called olfactory bulb, where the synapses occur. I told you we talk about bones, yeah, and here is the bone that is very important for the sense of smell. That is the cribriform plate in the ethmoid bone, and finally these parts of the olfactory nerve 1. And I told you that the first thing that happened is that here you will have receptors here in these blue pieces of dendrites that you will have receptor there in those dendrites, that they will send that to here to the long branches of the olfactory nerve 1. They will go through the here cribriform, and they will synapse here in the olfactory bulb. And I told you this one was a neural structure that is located in the vertebrate for brain and is involved in olfaction. And then pulse will travel here through the olfactory tract, and at the end you will have interpretation in the primary olfactory area of the brain, that it will be the temporal lobe. Okay, so now I hope that this is clear. In the following slide, I'm going to go now to the molecular basis. So what is happening with those receptors and what is the pathways? Please, there is no need that you memorize everything. I just want that you know the key terms of the proteins, yeah, of what is happening there. Okay, and remember, this is something that you might hear hundreds of times. Yeah, the G protein. So let's talk about G proteins and sense of smell. Okay, so now to finish, we have been talking about olfaction and sense of smell, and we were talking about mainly at the cellular level. Now I want that we go and zoom in here in the membrane, and this is what you will observe. You will observe the process of olfactory transduction. Here, the olfactory transduction is no more than the binding of an odorant molecule. So here, do you see this odorant molecule? Yeah, it's going to attach here into an olfactory receptor protein. Good. And what is going to happen in the following slide, I'm going to show you a video that explains what is happening. But the key idea is that there will be a lot of changes, yeah, at the molecular level, that they will, as a conclusion, they will produce a depolarization of the receptor potential, and they will trigger a nerve impulse. Okay, so this is olfactory transduction. So just to remind you, there is a process that is called signal transduction. Yeah, signal transduction. Yeah, so this process of transduction is not unique of the sense of smell. All the tissues during evolution have mechanisms to send signals, and this is one of them. So all of them is the same thing. Same thing that from a general perspective, there is an extracellular messenger that attach to a receptor, and the second thing that happen is that this will translate into changes at the protein level. It could be changes at the cellular level, and it will have a consequence. Yeah, the third step, that it could be changes in gene expression, and in this case there are no changes in gene expression. This is the production of a nerve impulse, but this is pretty common. In this particular case, what we're going to have is a chemical reaction involving this cyclic AMP. So cyclic AMP, that stands for adenosine monophosphate. Okay, and this depolarization will produce an action potential that it will travel to the frontal lobe, where is the location of the odor identification. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a video that explains step by step what is happening in this during this olfactory transduction.
Olfactory transduction is the binding of an odorant molecule to an olfactory receptor protein. Olfactory transduction begins when an odorant binds to the olfactory receptor cells. This leads to a chemical reaction involving cyclic AMP and causes depolarization. The binding of an odorant molecule to the G protein coupled receptor found in the membrane activates the G protein, which then binds to the adenylyl cyclase enzyme. The adenylyl cyclase is a membrane protein that catalyzes the reaction converting ATP to cyclic AMP. From there, cyclic AMP binds to and opens cation channels in the olfactory receptor cell. This causes an influx of sodium and calcium, which leads to the depolarization of the receptor cell. This causes an action potential to propagate to the primary olfactory area of the cerebral cortex. All of this is going to happen by way of the olfactory nerve.
Okay, so we just finished with the olfaction. The next video we're going to talk very quickly about degustation. Okay, hope that you enjoy it, and if you have any questions, let me know.